Okay, we're recording this on Wednesday evening, East Coast time. Neil's Chelsea just suffered a heavy 5-3 defeat to Liverpool in a game where a draw would have clinched a Champions League place. Before we get to Sunday's Premier League finals, let's start there. Neely, your reaction, my friend, to Chelsea's. Whew. Well, I mean, they made a fight of it thanks to an American boy. It's sort of like this show, Neil. When you and I are together on the show, you look to the American to drag this up from the depths, okay? Now, Rocky's an American, so, I don't have any problem with that. But between you and me, there's only one American, my friend.
Charlie, you have to go down to 12th place in Southampton for a team who's conceded more goals than Chelsea. And don't forget, Southampton conceded 9 in one game to Leicester. Chelsea are 4th. They've scored actually the equal 3rd most goals in the Premier League. But you've got to go down to 12th to find a team that's letting more. So
well, let me ask you this. The goalkeeper, Kepa, I mean, you bought him for a lot of money, if I remember
world record,
correctly.
80 million euros.
80 million euros. And look, I don't blame the club because Courtois wanted to leave once Real Madrid gets you in their sights. Or
yes,
Barcelona
but I do actually.
I
do, Charlie. I hate to go at my club because I love it and I sometimes have very good relations with it. But
I love that part of it.
But the fact is that the club knew Thibaut Courtois wanted to leave. In March, Rui Patricio, who I considered to be a world-class goalkeeper, became available after he decided to leave Sporting Lisbon when the fans attacked the players at the training ground, and that left all the players out of contract because allowing that to happen was in breach of contract. He had won the European Championships with Portugal in 2016. He had played against Chelsea in the Champions League and was outstanding. Chelsea knew everything they could have wanted to know about him, and they didn't make a move.
And he was George Mendes's player.
Yeah, and that summer he went to Wolves on a free. Now, in the end, Wolves paid Sporting Lisbon 15 million euros for
compensation.
15.
1-5, my friend. 1-5.
15. And compare that to Kepa Arrizabalaga. I think there are real issues for goalkeepers coming out the Spanish league into the Premier League, because in the Spanish league, you're expected to stay on your line and make the saves. And in the Premier League, you can't do that. You have to dominate.
Today, a ball came in on Kepa's line near the end of the game, and I think Graham Lasso said something effective. It's 3 yards out. He's got to get it. No, it was not 3 yards out. It was 3 feet from him. And I was like, that was shocking. And I'm not sure that Van Dijk even thought it was going to make it to him. And he was a little off balance when he took a shot on goal.
Look.
That was pathetic, Neil. It really was.
Kepa Arrizabalaga, for me, is not good enough. But let's not get carried away, because we have 4 centre-backs who aren't good enough. Kurt Zouma, Andreas Christensen, Antonio Rudiger, and Fikayo Tomori. They've all got qualities, these players, including the goalkeeper. They've all got qualities, but they're not Champions League quality. I don't think Azpilicueta is Champions League quality. He's been a solid Europa League player all his career. So, and then in front of them, you've got Jorginho, who on the ball, as long as it's on his right foot, has some quality. If it's on his left foot, he's dead. If he's against the ball, he's worse than dead, as happened on the final goal when Andy Robertson left him. So Kovacic, people run off him all the time. People think Kovacic is a good player, but Jorginho is the deep midfielder, so Kovacic is a more offensive midfielder. He never scores a goal or makes a goal. He didn't score for Real Madrid. He hasn't scored since he left Inter Milan. He's 25, 26. He has 6 years, 5 years. He's not scoring or making goals. So Chelsea,
but they look pretty at midfield. Ray, these are, for lack of a better word, these are your kind of technical players. Guys like Kovacic and guys like Jorginho. Technically, they're good players. But are they enough? Is Neil
William
right?
gave the ball away for the first goal.
Why you keep yelling at me, Neil?
You can't be doing these. Are basics that you can't. He's another Europa League player for me. Rookie, I made this point to Charlie earlier in the week. We signed Chelsea some years ago an 18-year-old Croat midfielder called Mario Pasalic. The club kind of hoped he'd be the next Michael Ballack. And he's gone across Europe. He was in a Monaco side that was successful. He's played for AC Milan, and they were not bad. Not great, but not bad.
Not bad.
He's now been a shining light for Atalanta. And he last week, when he got a hat-trick against Brescia for Atalanta, got more goals in one game than Mario Kovacic has gotten his Real Madrid and Chelsea careers.
Let me say about it's good that you brought Atalanta up to me, because I've got it written down here. Watching your Chelsea team, Neil, that's what they are. They're an Atalanta. They're all attack, and your defense is absolute crap. It's
I don't think Atalanta's defense is crap.
But you know what I mean. It's a team that's built on going forward, and that's what Chelsea.
What's their goal differentials? Atalanta's goal differentials 51 plus 51 right now.
I don't care. It's the same setup. I don't care. It's the same setup. It's about attacking, and defensively, they are just. I don't think they've taken care of that business. It may be a situation for Frank Lampard that getting the attack right this year or this season was number one. Let's get that. Conte did the same in many ways. Conte's team were an attacking team, and they won the champion. They won the league. So, does it come down to Coach Neil? Because there's an old school of logic that says defensively you can get that right. But
Rocky, Conte's team
been done that.
Conte's team had N'Golo Kante and Nemanja Matic in front of the back three. So nobody got through them. Now everybody gets through the two midfielders.
I mean, that is the problem, isn't it? Really, the
defense.
By the way, Charlie,
right?
Chelsea's goal difference.
What I was saying, Ray. I'm sorry. Hang on a second, Neely. What I'm saying is that it's a combination of what Neil is saying here. I mean, the midfield. I don't think the midfield is set up properly to defend. Put it that way.
No.
And the defenders aren't good enough to defend. Yeah. So you got a combination of problems here because I love Frank Lampard and he's going to be a great manager. Okay. He is going for it, right? As you said, Ray, he is the Atalanta. Let's just try to score more goals than the other team and get through it. And today, in a crazy moment, they almost did against Liverpool, right?
Yes.
Chelsea's goal difference is plus 13. So it is very different from Atalanta.
Very different Atalanta.
Look, I wanted to say that this is really important.
Thank you.
Chelsea lost one of the best players in the world last summer, Eden Hazard. Christian Pulisic didn't take his place, but he was signed the previous January and he plays in the same position. So it looks as though he's taken his place. He came on and he changed the game, quite frankly. He made a goal and he scored a goal.
And he almost had one other, conceivably two others actually.
Right. Yeah. But the thing is, because last season, when Chelsea qualified for the Champions League in third place, Manchester United, Tottenham and Arsenal all died from March. And Chelsea rose from sixth without winning or barely winning and finished up third. Now going into the last game, because Leicester have been losing and Manchester United couldn't put West Ham away, Chelsea only need a point at home to Wolves to come in the top four because Manchester United go to Leicester. So 1 point only at home. Chelsea have won their last 5 home games. So I remain optimistic. To put it mildly.
I want to hang on, fellas. I want to help us direct this back to, a lot of unfair comparisons made on Pulisic and from, can he be Eden Hazard? Can he not? I mean, I got to tell you, there are some young players I see out there. I got a couple guys come to mind. Young Clivert, for example. When he first hit the scene, I'm thinking, boy, he can really make it. Or the other kid at Roma, the little Turkish kid who's got some Under, which has some wonderful talent, right? So it's Justin and Under out there. They haven't advanced like I've seen Pulisic. And Ray, help me here. Is it all mental? Because this kid, I mean, he came in today and he looked like, honestly, he looked as good as Hazard today. I mean, he was, if it wasn't for him, they would have got blown out today.
Have you, when he come in off the bench, it's a different component as well. I think you'll find most professionals will tell you when you do come in off the bench, you have a different mindset. It's a whole different set of extremes that you're playing in as to when you start the game and you're playing with the game. So he came in and he ignites the team, basically. And that is really heartening for Chelsea fans. Neil is becoming more and more of an admirer, as I am, because now you're seeing the development in him that I'm not so sure to the extent that you even saw it at Dortmund. Now, when he was at Dortmund, he was up against competition that, you know what, Dortmund weighed it all up and said, we're going to stay with the other guy and take the money for Christian. So with all of the pressure of relocating to new league, new club, new atmospheres all over, despite all of the yellow wall and all of that, England is different. The expectations are more severe. And we all remember the critics and I was one of them in the early days of Christian Pulisic. I don't mind saying it because I don't think he lived up to this billing. He is now.
Well, the first time I saw Christian live, was at the Bernabeu against Real Madrid for Borussia Dortmund. And quite frankly, he looked a boy. He looked a boy with some skill, but he looked a boy. And playing in the same game 1 year older, 1 year younger, I think 1 year older than him was Ousmane Dembele. And he looked a world-class player in the making.
He did.
Now, Dembele went on to Barcelona and has gone backwards. Pulisic has gone on to Chelsea. Let me tell you this. Up until Christmas, New Year, Chelsea's best player was Tammy Abraham. He got 14 goals by Christmas, New Year. From January into the middle of February, everyone was crap. Up until Christmas, New Year, Christian, when he played, was making goals and quite often scoring goals. Not a lot. He'd got something like 6 goals, but he was probably top of the assists. Since he's come back after a really bad thigh injury during lockdown, since he's come back, he has been by a distance with Giroud, Chelsea's best player. If I look at the whole season, with his assists early on and his hat-trick at Burnley and his other important goals and his ability to get goals in the 6-yard box, sniff goals out like a really quality poacher, I'm telling you, I would vote Christian Pulisic the Chelsea Player of the Year.
All right. And I think that's, and look, I think it's all mental. And when I got yelled at by Frankie Four Fingers and some other people that I was too effusive about Pulisic with his dad, it was all about his upbringing and his mentality. And I kept saying to everyone, I think this kid has his feet on the ground, his head down, and he's going to get better and better. And you know what? He's proven me right, because the difference between guys like him and Dembele, now his body is caught up with his mind and he's able to do things where he was a puppy before. And he was, as you said, he was missing things. But look, guys.
And also, just one other thing. Technically, his left foot has improved 10 million fold. He hardly used his left foot before. With Dortmund, when he was on the left, he looked a fish out of water, always cutting inside, always looking to favour his right foot. I don't know if he's been doing specific practice on his left foot, but he now wants to shoot with his left foot. He wants to cross with his left foot.
There's a lot of improvement in him.
He can go either way.
When you looked at him at Dortmund, he played over 100 games, I think, for Dortmund, if I'm not mistaken, right? I have to check that up. But he played a lot of games for Dortmund. And you could tell there he was still is such a young player, very, very young, precocious talent. He was still polishing his game. And I saw him squander as many chances as he scored, time and time again. And that was what was plaguing my hope for him to be the great next American thing, a la Landon Donovan and the like, and Clint Dempsey, in and beyond that category. Now, he was on the cusp of it so many times, but he was playing against Dembele for his place in so many situations, and it was perhaps a little too early. Chelsea, in their infinite wisdom, have identified it and said, with the way we play as well, he will come in, especially after the exit of Hazard. This is the player we're banking on to replace it. And in this lockdown, in this weird, disconnected season, as Manchester United came in and grabbed their opportunity, as Real Madrid came in and grabbed their opportunity and caught fire, Christian Pulisic has done the same, and he's used all of his strengths to great advantage, and he's multiplying them as I'm looking at him. Hats off.
Okay. Hats off also to the Premier League champions, Liverpool. Today, Jordan Henderson lifted the trophy. They won 5-3. If you haven't already heard it from Neil's crying and whining and pissing and moaning about the loss today. But
terrible referee, but we won't go into it.
But let's move on to the other team on the other side that's fighting for the place, and it's Man United. Played at home today against West Ham. David Moyes came in, and I have to tell you, for all the grief that David Moyes gets, West Ham is now safe. Okay, 1-1, and led and played pretty well for a lot of the game. And now this is the second game in a row that Manchester United looked like Barcelona from 2010. And suddenly they've come back down to earth. Now, to be fair to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, he made a number of changes on the weekend because he's trying to get into the Champions League. He can get in two ways. They could either win the Europa Cup, which is certainly they're one of the favorites, or they could get in now by drawing next week at Leicester. In that matchup. First, let's talk about today's game. Let's start with you, Ray, this time. What did you think of you can even go back the last two games. What do you think of United right now?
Well, like I said earlier, Charlie, they've taken this opportunity of this fragmented season and capitalized on it. And the coach, first and foremost, deserves big recognition. I think that it was a real pressurized situation for both for all of these teams that we're talking about here on this podcast: Leicester, Chelsea, and Man United. Big pressure coming to bear now in the Alex Ferguson lingo, squeaky bum time, and it truly was. And when West Ham took the lead, you thought, this is great, this is football. Who'd have thought this? Neil Barnett thought it this morning.
Neil called it 1-1. I want our listeners to know.
Bullseye, absolutely bullseye.
I called Chelsea winning 4-0, Neil, for you, but I was wrong.
I took
nearly got 4 with us.
I was much more confident on my result with Liverpool absolutely bossing Chelsea, but that didn't turn out to be. It's football, right? We can't predict. It's wonderful. So yeah, credit to Paul Pogba as well for stepping up to the plate again.
Well, you say that. I think look, first of all, Manchester United went 19 games without defeat before the FA Cup semi-final, won 14, drew 5. They have been on a terrific run, and they are now a good team. There is absolutely no doubt about that. They will get a result at Leicester, and they will qualify for the Champions League. I have no doubts about that. But in the semi-final, David De Gea was poor. In a couple of recent games, Harry Maguire has been poor. And for West Ham's penalty, Paul Pogba was absolutely stupid, irresponsible, and unacceptable.
I don't think he wanted to get hit in the face, Neil. Now, if you're me at the radio station, Charlie, that's fine. But you're a player. Get hit in the face.
It wasn't. He was kneeling. He was kneeling, and he put his arms above his head. He was so pathetic. I've never seen anything.
He wasn't kneeling. I got to ask our producers here, Pete Corey and Carell. Was he kneeling?
You look at it. He goes down on his knees and puts his arms above his head. It's absolute. It's absolute. In the English commentary here, in me watching in London, Gary Neville was doing the commentary, the former Manchester United defender, and he went, "That's just rubbish. Pogba's been rubbish," which was about the best piece of punditry I've heard in a long time. Poor Pogba, this strong, physical
beast of a man,
wonderful specimen, and it's just inexcusable. Now, I've defended Pogba through a lot, and I believe, unlike Rocky disagrees with me, I believe he was world class in the World Cup. Right the way through the World Cup tournament. I thought he was magnificent. But you cannot be doing that. And this is what's happening at United at the moment. After this terrific run, they're just one or two players are beginning to show maybe tiredness, or I don't know what, but an inability to keep it going at the edges just when it's getting critical. And they'll qualify in the league, so the Europa League to that extent won't matter. But I do wonder if they needed to win the Europa League, if they actually would.
Yeah, and I think a lot of what's happening now is we're seeing teams like West Ham that are desperate to stay up, teams that are really getting some good results.
Aston Villa over Arsenal.
Yeah, exactly. Aston Villa over Arsenal 1-0 this week. And so, look, let's sort of get everyone on the same page at least, all right? We have, obviously, Liverpool has won the league. Congratulations. Man City second, comfortable. Liverpool, they're really done. They've had nothing to play for, really, except for this record that everyone keeps saying is so important. Yes, but you could see it's hard to motivate every single day when you've won something like they have, and they're no longer in the FA Cup, nor are they in the Champions League. Not that
but
easy.
It's fair to say, Charlie, they went out of those competitions before they'd won anything. They hadn't won the league when they went out of the Champions League and when they went out the FA Cup. And there's a lot of tosh spoken about how their game's gone off since they've won the league. No, it hasn't. The game went off from the day they walked into Atletico Madrid Stadium in the first leg of the round of 16. And after that, they not only lost the second leg, but before losing the second leg, they got trounced 3-0 at Watford, who will go down, hopefully. And they got beaten 2-0 with a strong team put out by Chelsea in the FA Cup. I think they've got issues going into next season.
And look, that's for another podcast, I think. Although it does hit on this here. I'm trying to figure out how the season's going to end. And honestly, Neil, I don't disagree with you. I think in some ways you saw why Liverpool are champions, because they can hit you on a break with devastating speed. And I have to say they have just had some wonderful goal scorers. This year it's been Mane, right? They have the ability, even when they're not playing well, like they weren't playing well against Chelsea the first 20 minutes, they scored 2 goals. So all of a sudden you're looking back on it, it's 2-0. I know they're not the super team they displayed when they ran away with the league, but they got a pretty damn good core, Neil. And I wouldn't worry.
I think Charlie, when you put it like that, and you're talking about the speed of them, I think you undervalue them. And I know it's a compliment, and they have got that in spades. But for me, it shows you when we watch these teams today, the Manchester Uniteds and the Chelsea, that the chasm of difference between a footballing entity in a beautifully constructed football team with the big TEAM in big cinder block letters, and a team of the others, the likes of Chelsea, Manchester United, and Leicester, to an enormous degree below, in my opinion. They're adrift of what Liverpool set out to be, and Liverpool rightly are. Now, the Man United team and the Chelsea team, for me, are the most interesting one, because the youth that they're both bringing through in key positions, star players, this Mason Greenwood, 17th goal of the season.
Boy, the kid's wonderful.
Places, we're talking about Christian. How about this kid?
This kid is a real deal.
Really. I mean, there's Brian Kidd, Wayne Rooney, and George Best. Three legends of Manchester United that were as prolific as him when they were teenagers. And this kid is proven to be an absolute star in the making. So Man United and Chelsea, with some of their precocious youngsters blossoming before our eyes, need to be enhanced with the types of players that Liverpool waited for and purchased in defence. Got the right stuff at the back.
And developed.
Exactly.
And develop. Look, I mean, what I was going to say before you two guys cut me off, it's still the best team in the world.
We just interject.
It's still the best team in the world, Liverpool. And I don't want that to be lost, okay? And we could sit here and dissect it, and what the whole point that I've been trying to make this whole podcast is mentality, how important it is. And Liverpool, had some mental lapses in some of the games. They lost to Atletico Madrid. Right. Yep. I get it. But in the end of the day, they're still the best team in the world right now, period. So let's move on. Man United, Chelsea, here's what we have for this weekend coming up, fellas, because I think it's important to get it. Man United is third. Is this correct here, Pete? With 63 points? Plus 28 goal differential. Chelsea, 63 points, is fourth with a 12 plus 12 goal differential.
Plus 13, Chelsea.
Plus 13? Okay, yeah. Sorry.
United
thank you.
United plus 28, Chelsea plus 13.
Okay. And then Leicester, 62 points, 1 point behind, 28 goal differential. Wolves, 59 points. 13, they're out, right? 13 goal differential.
They cannot finish.
They cannot finish. And Spurs, 58 points. So this really sets up Europa Cup and the Champions League. Now I'm going to go to Pete's permutations here, because Pete always helps me out. Okay, let me see, Pete. What'd you give me right now? Okay, Chelsea, any result except a loss, combined with a Leicester win or draw, and they get in.
Yeah, basically Chelsea are at home to Wolves, so it's a really big game.
Huge game for them.
But Leicester at home to Manchester United, which is a bigger game. I mean, what you've got is fifth versus third and fourth versus sixth.
Right. And as I was saying, United, a win or a Chelsea loss, and they're in. And Leicester, a win or a draw combined with Chelsea's loss, and they're in. So really, let's go through the games, okay? We have Man United is playing away at Leicester. All they need is a draw. Let's start there. Neely?
They'll win by a margin, because Leicester have just run out of players. Leicester, without Ricardo Pereira, without Soyuncu, without Chilwell, without Maddison, they've run out of players. They're just not good enough. It's sad. It's a pity, but they'll disappear with a whimper. Sorry.
Yeah.
What do you think, Neely? Ray. Sorry, apologies. Ray.
It's hard. It's hard to argue with Neil, and it's a sad circumstances for Leicester. But it's all caught up with them at the end. Brendan Rodgers being magnificent again. And the hitman up front, just absolutely stellar. He'll probably Jamie Vardy get the golden boot. top man at that age as well. It's been another Cinderella story in many, many ways for me, for this team, Leicester City. They should be hugely applauded and truly admired as a brilliantly ran football club, puppeteered by a coach who knows how to get the best out of aging players. And
let's make it clear. Let's make it clear that Leicester getting into the Europa League is as big as Wolves getting into the Europa League.
Sure
it's just we all get more excited by Wolves getting in because they haven't got a recent history of Europe. But Wolves is not a smaller club than Leicester. It's just Leicester won the Premier League.
What did Ranieri say? Dilly diddly dong, whatever it was. Wake up, everyone! We are in the Champions League. When Leicester got into the Champions League, and I guess, Neil, that numbed us a little bit, and all year they've been fighting for second and third place, and they've really just run out of gas, as you guys
They have,
said.
they've run out of players. And the other thing that it's really important to remember is that the only two regular starters this season who were in the 2016 title-winning side were Kasper Schmeichel and Jamie Vardy. They have built a new team. It's a bloody miracle. It's an absolute miracle what they've done.
With 3 different managers along the way, I think they had to get to Brendan, and he's done a really wonderful job, and our hats off to him. Well, let me ask you guys this. You're sitting there. You're Jamie Vardy. Is he still leading the league in goal scorers, right? I think he's leading the league.
He's 2 ahead of he's 2 ahead of Danny Ings, 3 ahead of Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang.
Does he say, fellas, I love this. Give me it. Give me this. All I have to do is beat Man United, and we're at home and we're in. Don't you think that he and the other guys are saying, come on, fellas, we need to pull it together for one day.
It ain't over. Absolutely, Charlie. It ain't over, especially when you've got the resolve of a champion, which that club has, because they were champions not so long ago, and that still emanates through the club and through the locker room, and certainly through Vardy. They won't be looking at the MASH unit in the training room, that the walking wounded that they have, and the bedraggled. I mean, they really are run down, and they don't have the freshness of legs for rotation. Ollie did as much there today. How much in the bank is Man United going to have? Leicester, not so much. So it's going to be an enormous Mount Everest stacked on top of Kilimanjaro for Leicester to overcome. But they did it. It's in their DNA, and we've got to respect that. And they could still spring a surprise.
But if we have to say it,
their direction is down. Manchester United's direction, despite the last 2 games, is up.
You're right.
I agree. I have Man United.
But wouldn't we all love to see Leicester get something out of it? No.
I mean, look, if Leicester gets something out of it and United gets back to the Europa League, I mean, they're still favorites to win the Europa League. It's not over for them.
Yeah, and remember, if it's a draw, Manchester United qualify. But if it's a draw and Wolves win at Chelsea, Leicester qualify.
Right.
And you're saying Man United win the Europa League. What about Wolverhampton Wanderers, Charlie?
Sure, absolutely.
I mean,
it's another one. The really one thing that needs to be understood is that the English Premier League, and it's fantastic season last year, right? And this year still doing well in all the different competitions, and it's overtaking Spain possibly as the biggest and most let's say the best league in Europe, in the world. If Man United gets into the Champions League, or Wolves gets into the Champions League, and the other one wins the Europa Cup, then they'll have 5 participants in the Champions League, just like Chelsea this year, which is a huge, enormous deal. And what's even more bizarre is, I don't know why they do this, Neil, because I think you agree with me, it's nuts. They give that team a group head of a group, which seems bizarre to me. But at any rate,
yeah. The interesting thing is as well, the top 10 coefficient countries in UEFA their champions go straight into the group stage. Now, if the European champions re-qualify through their domestic league and don't have to re-qualify through being the champions, then the 11th coefficient country goes into the Champions League group stage. And if that happens, and the Europa League champions also qualify through their domestic league, then the 12th country coefficient champions go into the group stage of the Champions League. And the 12th country coefficient, again, this season, like last season, is Austria. And of course, the champions are RB Leipzig. So right now, Jesse Marsch is sitting at home again, saying, sorry, I said Leipzig, RB Salzburg. Right sponsor, wrong country. RB Salzburg. So Jesse Marsch is sitting at home again in the States, watching the European and the leagues, the European trophies play out. And he could be straight back into the Champions League group stage without having to go through qualifiers if he gets say Manchester United came third or fourth and won the Europa League. The chances are RB Salzburg will be straight to the group stage.
And look, that's important because what people need to realize is that they got to start playing right away. There is no vacation.
But also, that's where the money is. For somebody like Salzburg, that's where the money is.
100%. And that's my point, Neil, is that not only do you make less money, but you got to start playing right away, which is a double hit, if you will. Well, look, quickly to the Europa Cup, all right? I guess we're talking of the three teams that are fighting, Chelsea, Leicester, and Man United for Champions League. One for sure goes into the Europa Cup, right?
The important thing to understand here, Charlie, is that who goes in depends very much on the FA Cup final. Because if Chelsea win the FA Cup final, then it goes down to 7th in the Premier League because Chelsea will qualify for Europe anyway. If Arsenal win the FA Cup final, they're not going to come in the top 7. So it only goes down to 6 because the FA Cup winners qualify.
Correct. And now, look, we're confusing everyone by now, okay? Except hopefully the three of us at this point, okay? So now, just let's go back to it. Man United, we all picked Man United to win or draw at Leicester, correct?
Yes, I think.
Okay. It's a draw. They don't have to win, right? They just have to draw. Okay? Right. So yeah. I say that they will get enough out of it. They will draw.
I say it with an uneasy feeling, Charlie. Just because football, knowing what it is and how that performance by Man United was far less convincing. And I'm just talking about in the pattern of play. Their overall play itself was not good. It was not impressive. So how much can he draw out of them for the final hey lads, hey game? And you look at Leicester, man, and they can be flipping haunting demons for teams that don't take them fully seriously. And it's a shame that Espirito Santo's teams, in a situation like this where they could slip out of it altogether. And that's why I think they may give more in a combination of mental attitude you've been going on about, Charlie, in a combined mental approach to this game than what Manchester United have.
Okay. All right. So that's a bit of a question mark you've left for us, right?
Yeah.
Now let's go to Chelsea Wolves, because this really comes down to, we all know it. Wolves and Man United are still in the Europa Cup. So instead of beating that horse to glue, as a friend of mine would say, okay, let's move on from there. We're talking about what's going to happen in the Premier League. We could have another pod for the Europa Cup when this is over, okay? But what's going to happen this weekend? Chelsea Wolves.
Chelsea at Stamford Bridge, final day. Given how they went down in flames today, Defensively, Lamps and his assistants have got to demand way more from that defence for me, and I think they'll get it against Wolves.
If Kante is fit, he'll come straight back in, but we don't know if Kante is fit. But he'll come in. Jorginho, if Kante is fit, Jorginho might not play for Chelsea again.
Okay, so then I just don't know if Wolves will have enough in them in that game.
Wolves need to win in order to ensure Europa League qualification through the league, because Tottenham are away to Crystal Palace, and Tottenham are just behind Wolves. They're a point behind, goal difference one better. So if Wolves were to lose and Tottenham were to draw, Tottenham would go into 6th position above them. And then if Arsenal won the FA Cup, Wolves in 7th position wouldn't be in the Europa League. So Wolves, to be safe, need to win, because Tottenham will win at Crystal Palace. Because, ladies and gentlemen, Crystal Palace, I think, have lost every game since lockdown returned. And
they have. And they're safe, though, right?
Yeah, no, they are. They are.
Well, this is the whole thing about there's 8 or 9 teams. Life doesn't matter to them. You know what I mean? Yeah. They sit there. This is what's going to happen. You can start at the top with Liverpool. They're solid. There's to Man City, and then there's the teams at the bottom are out. Then everyone else in between is like, well, I don't know. Anyhow, let's go to the bottom now.
That'll make it more feisty, but I think Chelsea will get the draw.
So who's going to let's go through the Europa Cup. Who's going to qualify?
Hang on, Charlie. I just want to ask Rocky this. Wolves come to Chelsea needing to get a win. Chelsea is by some distance, Rocky, now the smallest pitch in the Premier League. How does that affect a team not used to playing on a small pitch?
It's not. It can't be discounted, Neil, in a big way, because it is a big difference. I hated those tight confines of a football pitch when we played, in particular in North America. A complete different set of circumstances when you go and play some places like San Jose, which is postage stamp.
That is postage stamp.
You know, the range of your game goes out the window, and and it's very difficult to adapt to it as a team where you've had that range and you've had that space and mobility. So, it'll certainly be an advantage for the home team.
Look, and Leicester, at their best, is Vardy getting behind the defense. If there's no ground to get behind guys, it's hard.
That's right.
It's very difficult. And I have Chelsea going through and Man United going through. Okay? That's my pick. What do you guys pick?
Same.
Yeah, me too.
Okay. So everyone thinks that is Spurs going to get through? Is Jose going to pull a little rabbit out of his hat the past few weeks?
Yes, I think he will. I think if Wolves don't win at Chelsea, I think Tottenham will come 6th, and that will be them in, and then Wolves are relying on Chelsea winning the FA Cup to get into the Europa League. Just below Spurs in 8th place, Sheffield United, 4 points behind. They can't get into anything. So great season from them. How much
of a London contingent will take place in that, in terms of the derby, Crystal Palace and Spurs? Neil, that a factor at all?
Nah, empty stadium. Remember, Crystal Palace, one of the great achievements of Crystal Palace this season was to sign Gary Cahill, who has undoubtedly been their best player. And, of course, he's out with a torn hamstring. And their defence has gone to pieces since he's been out. Tottenham have got a bit of swagger back.
They do. I've been very, very impressed by what Jose has done.
And Jose, the biggest thing that Jose has done is he has resurrected Harry Kane. I can't believe what a job he's done with Harry Kane. But he's also got some better performances quietly out of other people. One person who's really cut down on his errors since Jose's gone there is Hugo Lloris, who has done what David De Gea hasn't done. and that's helped Tottenham an awful lot this calendar year. And I think the other guy who's done well, although he won't be playing because I think he's suspended, is Eric Dyer. I mean, playing him at the back, he's looked a different player again, and Tottenham have rediscovered something.
Jose, by putting Dyer back there, I think it's been masterful. He's given the kid his confidence back, and he's been able to I think calm things back in the back with even Lloris. I think Jose's done a masterful job.
Don't forget, Charlie, when he was at Manchester United, Jose tried to sign both Dyer and Alderweireld.
That's right.
So, him going to the club, they're going to be saying, hey, we got a manager who loves us.
Yeah.
So it's done wonders for them.
Absolutely right. All right, let's get into the relegation battle if we can. Who's dead last, fellas? Norwich is already City. Relegated. I just was testing you guys. You know what I mean? I'm testing you guys, but thank you so much, okay? 17th place is Aston Villa with 34 points, okay? Minus 26 goal differential. I guess John Terry's not been able to – if he played, they'd be better than if he's managing, being the assistant manager. Watford – I love JT. Watford, 34 points, minus 27 goal differential. And Bournemouth, as Ray calls them, because they told me, Ray, that we're pronouncing it wrong. It's Bournemouth, they tell me.
Yes,
has 31 points. Okay, so.
And a goal difference of minus 27.
So 27.
If they won, they might well stay up.
Yes, because of the goal difference. So Arsenal versus Watford. Watford must better Aston Villa's result to stay up. Okay?
Yeah.
Everton versus Bournemouth. Bournemouth can only stay up if they win and both Watford and Villa lose. That's a tough one. And West Ham plays Villa. West Ham today managed to save their season. They have nothing to play for now. Villa must better or equal Watford's result to stay up.
Yeah, when you say better their result, let's just get this clear. If they both lost, then it comes down to goals because the goal difference is only one apart. So when you say better, that includes the goal.
Losing.
So if
they only lose by one and the other team loses by 3, they've bettered their game.
So in fact, what this could also do, and we have to acknowledge this, is go down to goals scored. Because if you finish on the same points and with the same goal difference, it would go down to goals scored.
And why doesn't it go head-to-head, or does that go last?
No, they don't have head-to-head in the Premier League.
I know they don't, but I thought it must be some tiebreaker. What if those are equal?
Do you know, at some stage in the Premier League...
No, is it a coin toss? Because in tournaments...
No, before or after head-to-head, at some point in the Premier League, it goes to a replay. It goes to a game.
Okay. Well, that's fair enough. They've had that in Italy. They've had that many times.
But just say that both Aston Villa and Watford won and finished with the same goal difference. Then it would go down to goals scored, and Aston Villa have scored 40 and Watford have scored 34. So Watford really do need to better Aston Villa's goal difference because they're not going to better their goals scored.
I've never figured that out. And, I look back in the year that Man City won with Mancini and Balotelli, right? And they won by, goal differential over Manchester United. What I felt was sort of unfair is that Man City beat them twice that year. And imagine if they lost on goal differential. That would be, to me, there should be head-to-head should mean something, but it doesn't. Neil, let's stick with you. And we have, I know what it is. Let's stick with you, Neely. Who do you think's going to get relegated?
I think Watford will. And to be honest, I think what Peter Drury said on our football show this week, the announcer, as a Watford supporter, when he said that everybody who's not a Watford supporter will probably be delighted when they go, if and when they go down. I think that's true. I think he's got it absolutely spot on, because nobody will love Watford because of the way that they run the club and treat their managers. And I just go back to this fact that in the last 9 years, Watford's managers have been Sean Dyche, Gianfranco Zola, Beppe Sanino, Oscar Garcia, Billy McKinley, Slavisa Jokanovic, Quique Sanchez Flores, Walter Mazzari, Marco Silva, Harvey Gracia, Quique Sanchez Flores again, and most recently Nigel Pearson, and now they've got a caretaker manager. I mean, how is that building your team or building your club? It's absolutely ludicrous.
So you have Watford and Bournemouth going down?
Yeah, now Bournemouth's different. Bournemouth has got the smallest ground with a capacity of about 11,000, but it has had a lot of money put into it. It's Russian-owned. It's had a lot of money put into it. And I don't think the money's been necessarily that wisely spent. And they've had a lot of failures in the transfer market, but even worse, they've just had the most horrendous injury list of any club ever. They have had serious cruciate ligament and ruptured Achilles and goodness knows what injuries. And they've had some of their best players out for long periods. And in the end, it's just proved too much. They've also had, I would suggest, not a good enough goalkeeper, a young goalkeeper. And their top scorer for previous seasons, Callum Wilson, has had a particularly less than good season. And they just haven't stopped enough goals and they haven't scored enough goals. And Eddie Howe, their manager, who looks young and everybody loves him, I'm afraid he's had a rotten season. And
he has. And by the way, not long ago, they're saying, why doesn't Eddie Howe get the Manchester United job? And why doesn't he get the Arsenal job? And
why England, he was on the short list for England as well, Charlie.
Yeah, and I think that, look, I mean, there is this inferiority complex that English managers have, right? Let's be honest. They have not been treated, let's say, with glory. And a lot of foreign managers, including Sir Alex Ferguson, who will point out he's Scottish, okay? And, that they have not done well in the league, really. Now, that could be for another day, right? But sticking on this and Eddie Howe and where we are, you have Watford and Bournemouth going down with Norwich. Neil, how about you, Ray?
Sorry, can I just before Ray gives us that, can I just comment on what you've just said? What makes me uneasy is the number of English managers who still play 4-4-2. Eddie Howe's gone to 4-4-2. Sean Dyche plays 4-4-2. Roy Hodgson at Crystal Palace plays 4-4-2. Why have all the English managers gone back to that shape as if that's what they trust and they mistrust everything else? It just leaves me a little bit uneasy. But the other thing I just want to say about Eddie Howe, why I love him, is that when Bournemouth were going up through the divisions and he realised that he had a chance of getting them into the big time, but they'd have to be against the mighty ones, he went off researching how to play as a little one against the mighty ones. And he contacted Empoli because he liked their style of football and the way they'd gone up through the leagues in Italy, and their coach who got them into Serie A and was surviving was this geezer called Maurizio Sarri, now of course the Juventus coach. And he went and spent a week at Empoli watching Sarri prepare for a big game as part of his education. Now that's the kind of work that I like to see English coaches doing, and that's the kind of work that's kept Bournemouth in the top flight for so long.
And Neil, that's a great lesson. I talk to you all the time about this, you guys, and I tease you about anti-Italian discrimination, but we do look at the game a little differently. You have to say that, and managers in particular. Ray, I'm also, before you get started, I'm also with Neely that I think it's going to be Watford and Bournemouth are going down, because my feeling's a simple one. West Ham's staying up. they don't need this game.
Right. It's over.
You know, and I'm going back to the mental aspects this late in the season, especially in the coronavirus era that we're living in.
Yeah, you know, Watford and Bournemouth, certainly they're relying on other teams now. And, you know, the manner in which Aston Villa got their win back in the sale in the last game, it sets them up right. You know, it's all coming down to a situation that I think favours Aston Villa. And if they get the 3 points, they all know that's it. It's done. And I think they've got a great chance of doing it. The buoyancy in the team, the recognition of what it takes. They've got the hands around the throat of the others, and I don't see them letting up. It's as plain and simple as that for me. It shouldn't be that complicated either. Bournemouth, very, very disappointing year, no question. But like Neil was saying, you know, in that how much it could come down to the goal difference in certain aspects as well. Be a thrilling last game of the season, and it's just amazing how it's set up, both at the top and the bottom, that the stars have all, you know, come into a wonderful alignment for a final. Really spectacular ending. Whether it's going to be sweet or sour, it depends where you're going to take it, at which side of the table. But who would have thought it at the end of the season it would come down to these massive games to close it all out?
I mean, one of the fascinating things is this: 5 years ago, 6, 7 years ago, this would have been a completely different scenario because. Right. Nobody cared whether they got into the Europa League or not. Just nobody cared. There was no money in it. You lost money, if anything. You didn't sell out your ground for it. The big clubs didn't want to be in it. There was nothing to be gained. Yeah, if you got to the semi-finals, then you made money, but only if you got to the semi-finals. And then UEFA said, hang on, if you win the Europa League, you can qualify for the Champions League. And then a couple of years ago, they went one stage further and said, if you win the Europa League, you're top seeded the following season in the Champions League. So you won't, that means you won't face a top seed. You won't face Real Madrid or Bayern Munich or Juventus or Liverpool or Paris Saint-Germain in the group stage. Now, that has changed the minds of the big clubs. You know, Arsenal, who are facing Watford, can't get into the Europa League in the league, but they can by winning the FA Cup. And they're not going to want to lose their last game before the FA Cup final. Those individual players are all going to want to play in that FA Cup final. More to qualify for the Europa League than to win the FA Cup, quite frankly.
And we've said it now. The money... We've had other podcasts. Let me interrupt. We've had other podcasts.
Just one thing, Charlie. Let's not forget, Manchester United got into the Champions League by winning the Europa League. And that was so critical to their development as a club.
Cannot agree more. And this is for another day when I'm in Germany working on the Europa League TV show. We'll have a podcast from there about the importance of the Europa Cup. But look, fellas, that'll do it for today's episode of The Hat Trick presented by the ICC. If you haven't already, subscribe to the pod wherever you get your podcast. And check out our archive on internationalchampionscup.com. There you'll find exclusives with the likes of Ian Rush, Alphonso Davies, and Gareth Bale. We'll be back next week. Until then, for Neil Barnett and Rocky Ray Hudson, I'm Charlie Stilitano. A domani!